Hello everyone and welcome back to the pharmacology lecture series. So in today's video we shall cover the topic drugs which are used in the treatment of glaucoma. So this is a particular condition which is associated with the eye, wherein usually the intraocular tension or the pressure is high in such individuals. Of course not in all the situations, but in most of the cases it is associated with raised intraocular tension. Okay, so the IOT, this is the accepted short form for the intraocular tension. So in most of the cases of glaucoma, which is a group of diseases which is characterized by progressive form of a optic nerve damage. So due to this particular condition, it's a condition which causes progressive damage to the optic nerve, so that the vision may get affected slowly. And in most of the cases, the pathophysiology involves the increase in the intraocular tension about 21 mmHg. Okay, so main therapeutic measure over here is to lower the intraocular tension which is raised, okay, or even if it is normal, sometimes decreasing the intraocular tension will help. Now how you will decrease the intraocular tension? Okay. There are two major ways by which the intraocular tension can be reduced. Okay. First one is by reducing the secretion of aqueous humor. So the aqueous humor formation or its secretion itself is decreased, or the second way is by promoting its drainage. So whatever is formed in the eye, it is actually drained out, right? There are two processes actually how these aqueous humor is drained out of the eye. The drainage, again, it will be helpful in lowering the intraocular tension. So by lowering the intraocular tension, it retards the progression of the optic nerve damage. Okay, so lowering of intraocular tension helps in controlling the progressive damage to the optic nerve. Now how this drainage of this aqueous humor takes place? It takes place by two methods or by two ways, either through trabecular route. Okay, majority of the aqueous humor which is formed, 90% of the aqueous humor which is formed, it is drained out through trabecular route, whereas the 10% of it passes into the connective tissue spaces within the ciliary muscles, and from here it moves via suprachoroid into the episcleral vessels, and this particular route is known as uveoscleral outflow. So these are the two ways by which the drainage of the aqueous humor will take place. So either of these can be promoted by certain drugs to reduce the intraocular tension, or there are certain drugs which reduce either the formation or secretion of the aqueous humor. So these are the two main therapeutic approaches towards the treatment of glaucoma. So ultimately your target should be to decrease the intraocular tension. Okay. Now coming to the types of glaucoma. There are two types of glaucoma which are encountered. The first one is the open angle glaucoma. It is also known as wide angle glaucoma or chronic simple glaucoma, and the second angle glaucoma or acute congestive glaucoma. Okay, so now let us consider the first type, that is the open angle glaucoma or wide angle glaucoma or chronic simple glaucoma. Usually this is a genetically predisposed degenerative disease which is usually affecting the patency of trabecular meshwork, through which the most of the aqueous humor is getting drained out. Okay, so this patency, that is they are opening, patent, something which is patent means to keep it open. So this patency of this trabecular meshwork through which the aqueous humor is drained out, so that is lost progressively with the age. So as a result of which there is rise in the intraocular tension. So for the treatment of this type of glaucoma, usually ocular hypotensive drugs are utilized. Okay. So ocular hypotensives are the ones which are used to reduce the pressure within the eye. Okay. So intraocular tension can be reduced by such type of drugs. Now coming to the types of drugs or the classes of drugs and their examples with certain characteristics or their mechanism, how they help in reducing the intraocular tension or how they are beneficial in this open angle glaucoma. Okay, so the first class is the beta adrenergic blockers. Okay, so this particular class of beta blockers we have already covered in detail the pharmacology of beta blockers in the anti-adrenergic drugs or the sympatholytic drugs. Okay, alpha blockers and beta blockers. So we have already covered this particular class in detail. Okay, so these beta blockers, they usually do not act like miotics. Generally, initially miotics were quite popularly utilized. Miotics are the drugs which decrease the pupil size, right? So the cholinergic drugs, okay, or the parasympathomimetic drugs are usually having this particular property. They are miotic in nature, that is they produce meiosis, decrease in the pupil size. Whereas beta blockers, these do not affect the pupil size. So here meiosis is not produced or the tone of ciliary muscles or the outflow facility is not affected. But how they act? These beta blockers, they act by lowering the intraocular tension by reducing the aqueous humor formation. So here the formation of aqueous humor itself is inhibited. That's how they will help in. So obviously when the formation is reduced, the amount of aqueous humor formed will be less. So when the amount is less, obviously the intraocular pressure also will be lower. Okay. Now how exactly it is reducing the aqueous humor formation? This results from the down regulation of adenylyl cyclase. This particular enzyme, its down regulation takes place due to the beta 2 receptor blockage in the ciliary epithelium, and as a secondary effect, okay, due to the reduction in the ocular blood flow, by decreasing the blood flowing to the eye, also it helps in reduction of the intraocular tension. Okay, so these are the two mechanisms by which it is helping in reducing the intraocular tension. Okay, apart from this, the advantages of this particular class of drug is that it has less ocular side effects. They are as efficacious as miotics and they also have less of ocular side effects. So this is a plus point. Again, these ocular beta blockers. So these are a few examples of beta blockers which are specifically utilized for this particular condition, glaucoma. All the beta blockers are not utilized for the treatment of glaucoma. So the ocular beta blockers which are used, these are lipophilic in nature and they have high ocular capture. They are restricted to the ocular compartments. So this reduces the systemic effects. Also, they have no or weak local anesthetic property. Okay, so as a result of this, the corneal hyposthesia, that is the decrease in the sensitivity of the cornea, that is avoided. Also, any kind of corneal damage, that is also ruled out by this use of ocular beta blockers. Now, this is a picture of the eye which is showing the various sites of actions, okay, for various drugs. Okay, now we have started with the beta blockers. Okay, so beta blockers act at the ciliary body where exactly the aqueous humor is formed. Okay, so as a result of this, it reduces the aqueous secretion. Picture showing the ciliary body. Okay, so this is the epithelium of the ciliary body. Now the epithelium of the ciliary body, it contains the beta 2 receptors. Now these adrenoreceptors actually, which are located on the ciliary epithelium, it actually enhances the aqueous secretion via increased CAMP. Okay, so by blocking the beta receptors, okay, that is by drugs like timolol or betaxolol, they block these beta 2 adrenoreceptors. As a result of this, there is down regulation of adenylyl cyclase, so there is reduced generation of the CAMP. Okay, so this is how the aqueous secretion is decreased by the beta blockers. Okay, now coming to the advantages of topical beta blockers over the miotics. Okay, why miotics popularity has reduced with the advent of these beta blockers. First advantage is that there is no change in the pupil size. Miotics, they will result in changes in the pupil size, right? So there will be a problem with diminution of vision in the dim light. Okay, especially these changes are also not very good in case of patients with cataract. Okay, so such kind of alterations in the pupil size is not seen. As a result of this, there won't be any diminution of the vision in the dim light or in case of patients with the cataract. Next advantage is there is no induced myopia. Myopia is a situation of nearsightedness, wherein you can see the objects very clearly only which are located nearby. Okay, so you are not able to see the objects which are located far away very clearly in this particular situation. Okay, so next advantage is these particular drugs do not precipitate any headache or eyebrow pains. Okay, so that is frontal headache is not precipitated, okay, which is true due to the persistent spasm of the iris or the ciliary muscles. So such kind of adverse effects are not seen with the beta blockers. So also there is no fluctuations in the intraocular tension as occurs with the pilocarpine, okay, which is a miotic. Then it is quite convenient because twice or only once, sometimes once daily application may be sufficient. So rather than instilling something in the eyes, instilling the eye drops in the eyes, say for 3 to 4 times per day, single or twice daily dosing or application is quite convenient to the patients, right? So these are the advantages of topical beta blockers. And coming to the side effects. Now side effects are categorized into ocular side effects and the systemic side effects. Now coming to the ocular side effects of the beta blockers, these are generally mild and infrequent, but sometimes it can be troublesome. Okay, so ocular side effects include the stinging sensation. The stinging sensation is the intense burning pain which is experienced when you have an insect bite or insect sting. So similar kind of intense pain may be felt in the eye. Next ocular side effect is the redness may be produced or the dryness of the eye may be produced. Then corneal hyposthesia, that is decrease in the corneal sensitivity. Then allergic blepharoconjunctivitis. Okay, so this is the condition wherein the two conditions, that is blepharitis, which is the inflammation of eyelid margin, and the conjunctivitis, that is inflammation of the conjunctiva. So both these are associated with this particular side effects of the beta blockers. Okay, so allergic blepharoconjunctivitis may be precipitated. Then another ocular side effect is the blurred vision. Blurring of the vision may take place. Then coming to the systemic adverse effects. Okay, so usually certain beta blockers upon prolonged use, they may get absorbed through the nasolacrimal duct. They may get absorbed systemically. So systemically absorbed beta blockers, they may precipitate life-threatening bronchospasm because beta 2 receptors, they produce bronchodilation, right? So the beta 2 blockage, it will result in the bronchospasm. So this can be dangerous in asthmatics or COPD patient. Then another systemic adverse effect is bradycardia, decrease in the heart rate, accentuation of the heart block. We have seen the effects of beta blockers on the heart. So all these may get precipitated. Even the congestive heart failure may also get precipitated. Okay. Apart from this, the other adverse effects and contraindications of the systemic beta blockers also apply to these ocular beta blockers, because they may get absorbed systemically. So coming to the individual drugs, okay, individual beta blockers which are used as ocular hypotensives. The first one is timolol. So this is a prototype of the ocular beta blockers. Okay, so it was the first of its kind which was tried in this particular situation. And this timolol, it is a non-selective beta blocker, as we have also seen in the classification of the beta blockers, that there are certain beta blockers which are non-selective and certain which are cardioselective, that is beta 1 selective. Okay, so this one is a non-selective beta blocker, that is it can block both the beta 1 as well as beta 2 receptors. Okay, and this one has no local anesthetic property or any intrinsic sympathomimetic activity. We have seen that certain beta blockers, pindolol, it has intrinsic sympathomimetic activity. So it can itself stimulate the receptors also, but such kind of property is lacking with the timolol. Now this particular drug timolol, it reduces the intraocular tension by 20 to 35%. Okay, so it's ocular hypotensive action. It is occurring within 1 hour. So within 1 hour it will start reducing the intraocular tension, which will last for 12 hours. So its duration of action is 12 hours. Okay. Even sometimes the decrease in the intraocular tension, it persists for a long period, like even it may last for 1 to 2 weeks even after the discontinuation. Okay, so this helps in a better control. Okay, so this feature is actually advantageous because even if you miss 1 or 2 doses, it's not a problem. Okay, the control of intraocular tension is not affected, unlike a pilocarpine. If you miss the doses, then it will affect the intraocular tension control. Okay, however, 30% of the cases of this condition, open angle glaucoma, they fail to achieve the desired level of decrease in the intraocular tension with this drug alone. So maybe along with this you may have to give some add-on therapy. Okay, one more drug may have to be added. Okay, because in certain percent of individuals it may not show effectiveness, or it may not effectively control the intraocular tension. Next drug is betaxolol. Okay, so this particular drug is somewhat beta 1 selective in blocking the receptors. Okay, timolol, it is non-selective blocker, but betaxolol, it is a beta 1 selective blocker. So as a result of this, what will happen? We have also seen that cardioselective drugs, they have so many advantages, right? So they have less of bronchopulmonary complications, or less of cardiovascular complications, or central and metabolic side effects are ruled out, because most of the actions at these particular sites are beta 2 mediated. Okay, so beta 1 selective blockers, these will be advantageous in that systemic toxicities of this particular drug may be less likely on the other systems. It is actually used for its action on the eye, okay, but sometimes the systemic toxicity also may take place. So that can be ruled out because of its selective nature. Okay. Now in addition to its beta 1 blocking property, it also exerts a protective effect on this retinal neurons, by blocking some of the calcium channels, or by reducing the sodium or calcium influx. So this is an additional mechanism by which it has a protective effect. Okay, so that progressive damage to the optic nerve or the retinal neurons, it is reduced by this additional mechanism apart from the beta blocking property. Okay. Now action of this particular drug betaxolol, it is more prominent as compared to the timolol. However, betaxolol, it is less efficacious in lowering the intraocular tension than timolol. Okay, it has a prominent action, but it is less efficacious as compared to the timolol. Okay, that's because mainly the ocular beta receptors are beta 2 subtype, as we have seen in the earlier figures. Okay, it's mainly the beta 2 subtype. Okay, and this is more selective in blocking the beta 1. No doubt the side effects tendency are less due to this selectivity, but because of the same reason it has less efficacious as compared to the timolol. Okay, then side effects which are more common are stinging and burning sensation in the eye. These are quite common with betaxolol. Next drug is levobunolol. Okay, this is a drug which is sufficient in once daily dosing. Okay, so it was introduced as an alternative to timolol. In that only once daily dosing may be sufficient. Rest all properties remain the same as that of timolol, excepting that it has a little bit longer duration of action. Okay, so its tendency to reduce the intraocular tension, okay, it lasts for a longer period as compared to timolol. Okay, so this to do with the beta blockers, ocular beta blockers. Then the next class is the alpha adrenergic agonist. Okay, the first drug under this particular category is dipivefrin. Actually, this is a prodrug of ADR, that is adrenaline. Okay, usually adrenaline, it cannot penetrate the cornea. Okay, it has poor penetration into the cornea. Okay, so for that matter, it is designed as a prodrug. Now, this particular drug, dipivefrin, it can penetrate the cornea, and once it crosses the cornea, it is hydrolyzed by the esterases and it gets converted into its active metabolite, that is adrenaline. Okay, apart from this particular drug, it also causes ocular smarting. Okay, that is a stinging sensation may be produced, or reactive hyperemia, that is increase in the blood flow to the eye, may be also produced by this particular drug. Okay, now coming to the mechanism of action, how exactly this particular drug helps in reducing the intraocular tension. So it is a prodrug, it gets converted to ADR. Okay, so whatever ADR is released, it lowers the intraocular tension by augmenting the uveoscleral outflow. Okay, so the outflow of the aqueous humor, it is increased. Okay, and also beta receptor mediated increase in the hydraulic conductivity of trabecular filtering cells. This is also promoted. Also, one more mechanism is that it reduces the aqueous formation also. This is because of its agonistic property at the alpha 1 and alpha 2 receptor. Okay, so this particular actions of ADR at various receptors, adrenergic receptors, act in lowering the intraocular tension by multiple mechanisms. That is, the outflow is also promoted. Okay, and also the formation is also reduced. So both the mechanisms are applicable over here by interacting with both the types of adrenergic receptors, that is alpha as well as beta adrenergic receptor. Okay, though this particular compound, it is better tolerated and longer acting as compared to ADR, still when it is administered or when it is instilled into the eye, burning sensation and other side effects, ocular side effects may be precipitated. So as such, this particular drug is supposed to be used as an add-on therapy, as an adjuvant to the other drugs, okay, other important drugs. Now coming to the mechanism of this particular drug, let us see what is the site of action for this particular drug. Okay, so here, this is the site for the adrenaline. Okay, that is site 4. Okay, uveoscleral outflow of the aqueous humor which is formed, it is promoted. Okay, so outflow is promoted over here by altering the permeability and the pressure gradients. This is how basically it is acting. Apart from this, the alpha-1 adrenoreceptors, these can constrict the ciliary vessels and reduce the aqueous production. Okay, so these alpha-1 receptors which are located in the ciliary body. So because of the constriction of the ciliary blood vessels, it results in decrease in the formation of the aqueous humor. Even the alpha-2 adrenoreceptors which are located on the ciliary epithelium, by stimulating these receptors, the secretion of the aqueous humor which is formed by the ciliary body, this is also decreased. Okay, so it decreases the formation as well as the secretion of the aqueous humor by its alpha agonistic property. Okay, so coming to the next drug, that is epreclonidine. Okay, now this particular drug, it is a polar clonidine congener. Okay, usually this particular compound, because it's a polar congener, it cannot cross the blood-brain barrier. Clonidine actually acts on the central alpha adrenergic receptors. That's how it has antihypertensive property. But this particular drug, epreclonidine, this particular drug, it is a polar congener, so it cannot cross the blood-brain barrier. So central effects are ruled out over here. Okay, whereas when it is applied topically in the form of a 0.5 to 1% solution, it helps in lowering the intraocular tension by around about 25%. Okay. Now, how exactly it is helping in reduction of the intraocular tension? It is by decreasing the aqueous production. So, it acts mainly through the alpha-2 and alpha-1 receptors in the ciliary body, which we have seen just now. Okay, so that's how it decreases the aqueous production and the secretion, and as a result of this, it will help in lowering the intraocular tension. Now, the common side effects which are seen includes the itching sensation or lid dermatitis, follicular conjunctivitis, mydriasis, eyelid retraction, dryness of the mouth and nose. Okay, so systemic effects are also seen over here. Okay, so use is restricted to short-term control of the spikes of intraocular tension, usually which is seen after the laser trabeculoplasty or iridotomy. So these are the two the surgical procedures which are used to treat this particular condition, open angle glaucoma. Okay, so trabeculoplasty, it is the laser therapy which is done, or laser surgery which is done to facilitate the outflow of the aqueous humor. And iridotomy, laser iridotomy, it is the surgical procedure wherein the part of iris, it is removed, okay, to decrease the aqueous humor production and to facilitate the outflow. Okay, so usually after these procedures are carried out, there may be spikes of intraocular tension. So to control these, this particular drug can be utilized. Okay, so it is generally a reserved drug for short-term use. Okay. The next drug is brimonidine. Okay, this is again a clonidine congener which is more selective towards alpha-2 receptors, and it is more lipophilic as compared to the previous drug, that is epreclonidine. It helps in lowering the intraocular tension by 20 to 27% by reducing the production as well as the by increasing the outflow. Uveoscleral outflow is also promoted and the aqueous production is also reduced. So that's how it is helping in reducing the intraocular tension. Okay. The peak action, that is a maximum effect on the intraocular tension, maximum decrease in the intraocular tension, it is seen after 2 hours. So it starts showing maximum effect after 2 hours. So it acts quite immediately, or a quick action is, or quick onset of action is seen. Okay. Coming to the ocular side effects, allergic conjunctivitis. This is quite common with this drug brimonidine. Okay. Now, because of its weaker alpha-1 action, side effects like mydriasis, eyelid retraction, conjunctival blanching, okay, followed by hyperemia, these are less prominent. Okay, but side effects like dryness of mouth, sedation, fall in BP, these are noted with this particular agent. So these are the systemic side effects which can get precipitated. Okay, so for that matter, this drug also can be utilized for short term use. Okay, that is for prophylaxis of intraocular tension spikes, okay, post surgery, okay, post laser or post surgery, okay, or even for long term use in the treatment of glaucoma. However, this particular drug only is supposed to be used as an add-on therapy. It's not used as a first line treatment. Okay. Then the third class is the prostaglandin analogs. It was found that low concentrations of PGF2 alpha lower the intraocular tension without inducing the intraocular inflammation, okay, which is seen by most of the agents which we have seen so far. Okay, so ocular side effects are precipitated. So these are less likely with the prostaglandin analogs, that is specifically the PGF2 alpha. Now, how does it act? Mainly this PGF2 alpha, it increases the outflow. Uveoscleral outflow is promoted, and also the permeability of the tissues in the ciliary muscles, this is also increased. So as a result of this, it will facilitate the outflow, uveoscleral outflow. Again, it may also act on the episcleral vessels. That's how again it will promote the outflow. Okay. Now, the effect on trabecular outflow, which is the second pathway by which the aqueous fluid is secreted out. Okay, so effect on trabecular outflow is less marked. Okay, comparatively uveoscleral outflow, it is promoted by prostaglandin analogs. Okay, so ciliary bodies, they basically have this COX-2. It has been found to be down regulated in wide angle glaucoma. So this indicates the physiological role of PGs. Okay, so coming to the site of this prostaglandins, actually they are acting at site 4, that is here. So uveoscleral outflow is promoted by the prostaglandin analogs. Okay, so coming to the examples of this prostaglandin analogs, usually the actual prostaglandins cannot be utilized because they have a very short-lived T half-life. Okay, so they are immediately getting degraded. Okay, so they have a very short T half-life. So for that matter, several prostaglandin analogs have been developed. Okay, so one of it is latanoprost. It is a PGF2 alpha derivative which is showing efficacy similar to that of timolol. It reduces the intraocular tension by 25 to 35%. Okay, and it sustains the action over a long term. Okay, so a long term well sustained action is shown by this particular compound. Okay. Now, this particular prostaglandin analog, it helps in this situation by lowering the intraocular tension. Okay, even in the normal pressure glaucoma also, not only the situations in which the intraocular tension is high, but even in those conditions of glaucoma wherein the intraocular tension is normal, in these situations also it can lower the intraocular tension and help in the preventing the progression of the disease. Okay. Then the side effects are ocular irritation and pain. Okay, these are relatively frequent, but systemic side effects are absent with this particular drug. In certain situations, blurring of vision, okay, increased iris pigmentation or thickening and darkening of the eyelashes may be seen in certain situations. Okay. The patients who are suffering from aphakia, okay, that is the situation in which the lens is absent. Okay, so in such patients, macular edema may be developed. Okay, so you should be careful while administering this drug to such individuals who are suffering from aphakia, that is in which the lens is absent, maybe due to the cataract or due to certain surgical procedures. The lens might have got damaged in such situations. So accommodation problems may be seen in such individuals. Okay, so this is a contraindication to the use of latanoprost, or you should be cautious while administering it to such individuals. Okay, then coming to the advantages of this particular drug, it has very good efficacy. Only once daily application is sufficient, and absence of systemic complications is what is a major concern, because with so far whatever drugs we have discussed, they are absorbed systemically and they produce systemic complications which are absent with these PG analogs. So that's why they have become the first choice drug in the open angle glaucoma. Only advantage is that they are quite costly. High cost is the major disadvantage with these particular drugs. Okay. The next PG analog is the travoprost. Okay, so this is actually an agonist at the prostanoid receptor FP. This is actually a prostanoid receptor for the PGF2 alpha. Okay, so by acting as agonist at this receptor, it produces action similar to PGF2 alpha. Okay, so it helps in reducing the intraocular tension by increasing the uveoscleral outflow, and to some extent trabecular outflow is also affected. Okay, or it is increased. Okay, but majorly which is affected is the uveoscleral outflow. Okay, and the effects produced by this particular drug is within 2 hours. It will start producing the action, and peak action, maximum effect is shown at 12 hours, and duration of action is 24 hours or even more than that. Okay, so this is quite advantageous. Even single daily dosing is sufficient with this particular drug. Rest of the properties are similar to that of latanoprost. Next drug is bimatoprost. This is a synthetic prostamide derivative, okay, which is found to be very much similar in efficacy to latanoprost in lowering the intraocular tension. Okay, so this particular drug is considered to be a better tolerated drug in certain individuals. Okay. Next class of drug is the carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. Okay, usually this particular drug is used as a diuretic. Okay. Acetazolamide is an example of carbonic anhydrase inhibitor. Okay. So this particular enzyme also exists in the ciliary bodies. Okay, so that's how it will be helpful. Okay, so acetazolamide, it is actually not instilled in the eye, but it is given orally in the dose of 0.25 grams 6 to 12 hourly. Okay, you need to repeat the treatment. Okay, and it is administered by oral route. So it helps in reducing the aqueous formation by limiting the generation of bicarbonate ion. Okay, so it will act locally so that the generation of aqueous humor is affected, because it limits the availability of bicarbonate ions. Okay, so usually it is used as a supplement ocular hypotensive drug for short-term indications like angle closure before and after the ocular surgery or laser therapy. Side effects produced by this particular drug is paresthesias, that is tickling, tingling sensation, anorexia, that is loss of appetite, hypokalemia, decrease in the potassium levels, acidosis, malaise and depression. So because of these systemic side effects, okay, the popularity of this particular drug, okay, it is reduced. So it is restricted only to the short term uses, okay, because of this particular condition. Now coming to the site of action of this particular drug. side 3. Okay, so at the ciliary bodies, usually carbonic anhydrase enzyme is getting inhibited, and that's how aqueous secretion will get affected. Okay, so this picture makes it more clearer. So in the epithelium, ciliary body epithelium, the carbonic anhydrase enzyme is present. Okay, so by inhibiting this enzyme, the availability of this bicarbonate ions, okay, so this is restricted by these particular class of drug, that is carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. Next drug is dorzolamide. This is again a carbonic anhydrase inhibitor which is instilled topically in the eye, okay, in the form of a 2% eye drop. Okay, now usually why this particular drug came into picture is to overcome the systemic side effects of acetazolamide, and it can lower the intraocular tension by 20%. Coming to the side effects, ocular stinging, burning sensation, itching, corneal edema or bitter taste, these are the side effects of this particular drug. Apart from the ocular side effects, the systemic side effects may occur, but these are less likely as compared to the acetazolamide. However, this particular drug is only supposed to be used as an add-on drug, okay, usually to the topical beta blockers or the PG analogs, okay, or wherever these particular drugs are contraindicated. In that situation, you should go for dorzolamide. Then the next class is miotics. Okay, as I have told you initially that miotics were quite popularly utilized. Topical, for example, topical pilocarpine and or anticholinesterases. Okay, these were quite popularly utilized, standard anti-glaucoma drugs. Okay, but because of several side effects and drawbacks, these are rarely used nowadays. Okay, so in case of open angle glaucoma, they used to reduce the intraocular tension by increasing the ciliary muscle tone. Okay, as a result of this, it improved the patency of trabeculae, so outflow was facilitated. Okay, but these particular drugs are almost out of use nowadays, okay, due to the availability of better drugs. Okay, so miotics in open angle glaucoma, okay, here the contraction of the ciliary muscle pulls on the sclera, okay, this was promoted. Okay, so this is how it improves the trabecular patency. Okay, side 2, this one. Okay, so outflow was facilitated. Okay, so the current approach of treatment for the open angle glaucoma, usually it is started with monotherapy of latanoprost or a topical beta blocker, and if the intraocular tension is not effectively controlled, then either you can switch over to alternative drug or use an add-on therapy. Okay. Apart from this, the brimonidine or dorzolamide, okay, these are used only when there are contraindications to these PG analogs, okay, or the beta blockers, or as an add-on therapy to supplement their action. Topical miotics and oral acetazolamide, these are again added only as a last resort. Okay, that is, it is a last option. Okay, if at all required, it must be added, otherwise it is not preferably utilized in the treatment. Then coming to the second type of glaucoma, that is angle closure glaucoma, or it is also known as narrow angle glaucoma or acute congestive glaucoma. Okay, usually this is the type of glaucoma which is developed in the patients in whom there is narrow iridocorneal angle, okay, and the shallow anterior chamber. So anterior chamber is it is shallow, okay, it is smaller in size, or the iridocorneal angle is narrow, so that the outflow is affected, and that's how the intraocular tension may get affected. Okay, now usually unlike the open angle glaucoma, here intraocular tension remains normal usually. Okay, but as an attack gets precipitated, usually because of the mydriasis, it may result in sudden rise in the intraocular tension. Okay, so intraocular tension, it rises rapidly to very high values, as high as 40 to 60 mmHg. Okay, so this is an emergency condition which is associated with marked congestion of the eyes or severe headache. Okay, so if you do not control this particular situation quickly, it may even result in loss of sight. Okay, so it is an emergency situation whenever an attack is precipitated. Okay, so usually in this particular situation, miotics help a lot. Okay, now let us see what exactly is happening in this angle closure glaucoma and how the miotics benefit. Okay, usually mydriasis, if it is induced, mydriasis in the sense increase in the pupil size. So when it occurs in an eye in which there is narrow iridocorneal angle, okay, and iris make contact with the lens. Okay, iris, when it makes contact with the lens, it will result in blockage of the passage of the aqueous humor, as we have seen in the earlier pictures how exactly the drainage of the aqueous humor take place. So because of this mydriasis which is induced, and because of the iris making contact with the result of this mydriasis and blockage of the outflow, it increases the tension within the posterior chamber. So as a result of this, it will exert excessive pressure on the iris. So iris, if you can see over here, they are bulging outwards, right? They are bulging forwards, and it has resulted in closure of the iridocorneal angle. So as a result of this bulging, the outflow of the aqueous humor is affected. Okay, now in this particular situation, how the miotics will act? Okay, what miotics do? They result in decrease in the pupil size. You can see over here the pupil size has reduced, right, because of the contraction of the circular muscle or the sphincter pupillae. They contract and they will result in decrease in the pupil size over here. So as a result of this, the iris, they move apart or they move away from the lens, so that the pupillary block, this is removed, the pupillary blockage is removed, and it restores the aqueous humor drainage. Okay, so the aqueous drainage is facilitated by the miotics. Okay, so in this particular type of glaucoma, miotics are very helpful, okay, in controlling this particular situation. Now whenever this particular type of glaucoma, the angle closure glaucoma is precipitated, you have to institute vigorous therapy, okay, by taking up several measures, okay, to control the situation. So the first measure is administration of hypertonic mannitol, that is 20%, okay, 1.5 to 2 grams per kg, or glycerol 10% may be infused IV. So this will help in decongestion of the eye by its osmotic action. Apart from that, retention enema of 50%, glycerin may also be given sometimes. Next measure is acetazolamide, 0.5 gram IV. This is followed by oral twice daily dosing may be continued. Okay. Next measure is miotic. As I have told you, these are quite helpful, okay, which helps in reducing the intraocular tension and also facilitating the outflow. Usually once the intraocular tension starts to fall due to the IV therapy which are given, okay, the first two measures which we have seen. So with this, the intraocular tension will start to fall. So once it starts falling, you can administer pilocarpine 1 to 4%. It is instilled every 10 minutes initially, and then at longer intervals. Okay, you can keep a greater gap in between instillation of this miotics. Okay, so how it helps? It helps by contraction of the sphincter pupillae. So as a result of this, the direction of forces in the iris, okay, how it will help? It will help by contraction of the sphincter pupillae, which changes the direction of forces in the iris. So as a result of this, there will be less contact with the lens, okay, and it spreads the iris mass centrally. So as a result of this, pupillary block is removed and iridocorneal angle is free. Okay. However, when intraocular tension is very high, the iris muscles fail to respond to the miotics. Okay. So in this particular situation, the other measures to reduce the intraocular tension are first supposed to be instituted, and then you should go for the next measure is topical beta blockers. Timolol 0.5% may be instilled well early in addition to the above therapy. Apart from this, epreclonidine 1% or latanoprost 0.005% may be instilled. Okay, so usually this drug therapy, it is given to terminate an attack. Okay, usually the intraocular tension will remain normal, but when an attack is precipitated, intraocular tension will be very high, markedly increased. So to control this intraocular tension, certain drugs are utilized, okay, which will help in terminating the attack. But the definitive treatment for the angle closure glaucoma is either surgical or laser iridotomy. That is, the partial removal of the iris have to be done as an ultimate measure or the definitive treatment. Okay. So in few cases, maybe who have chronic narrow angle glaucoma, they may be treated with miotic or other ocular hypotensive drug. Okay, but ultimately you should go for a surgery or laser therapy. This is required to control this particular situation. Rest all treatments are symptomatic and to control the attacks only. Okay, so these are the short term treatments which may be given, okay, but ultimately you should go for a surgery or a laser therapy. Drugs used for the treatment of glaucoma, this is quite important from exam point of view. So question may be asked like, write a note on the drugs used for treatment of glaucoma. So you need to discuss both the types of glaucoma and what are the different treatment lines for this both types of glaucoma. So this is the reference. Thank you for watching.